It's strange how some streets can feel alive, not in a friendly, warm sense, but like they're breathing just beneath the surface. Ashford Lane was one of those streets. You could walk down it in daylight and feel fine, but at night, the air pressed closer, the shadows leaned in, and the silence carried weight. When Erin moved there, she didn't know the history. She only knew she needed somewhere cheap, and the small apartment at the very end of the lane had been half the price of anything else she'd seen. The landlord was oddly eager to hand her the keys, barely glancing at her ID before rushing through the paperwork. The apartment itself was fine. 2 rooms, creaky wooden floors, and a window that faced the alley. But there was a door at the end of the short hallway, painted over, sealed shut, no handle. When Erin asked about it, the landlord smiled tightly. "Just storage," he said. "Best to leave it alone." That night, the sound started. Soft knocks from inside that sealed door. At first, she told herself it was the pipes, or maybe rats. But then came the whispering, too faint to make out words, but definitely human, and definitely coming from inside. By the 3rd night, she woke to find the hallway light on. She never left it on. She never even used it. The sealed door looked different in that dim glow. The paint was bubbled, cracked around the edges, as if something was pressing from the other side. She tried to ignore it. Headphones, TV running all night. But one evening, as she passed by to get to the kitchen, she heard a single, clear word. "Let me out." Erin froze in the hallway. Her brain scrambled for a logical answer, anything that wasn't what it sounded like. She took a step back, holding her breath. The air felt thicker, heavier, like the atmosphere itself was warning her not to move any closer. She stared at the cracks in the paint. For a second, she could have sworn something dark pulsed between them. "Nope," she whispered to herself, retreating to the kitchen. But the knocking followed her. 3 slow thuds. Pause. 3 more. That night, she tried to sleep on the couch with every light in the apartment blazing. Sometime past midnight, the power went out. The silence that followed was so complete, she could hear her own pulse in her ears. Then footsteps. Soft, deliberate. Not in the hallway, inside the living room. She sat up, but saw nothing. The shadows in the corners looked deeper, thicker than they should have been. The voice came again, low and almost gentle. Closer. Erin backed up until she hit the wall. She wanted to scream, but it felt like the sound was stuck somewhere deep in her chest. The next morning, she packed her things. At least that was the plan. But when she tried the front door, the deadbolt wouldn't turn. The metal felt warm under her hand, like it had been sitting in sunlight. Then she noticed it. The sealed door at the end of the hall was no longer sealed. The paint had peeled away completely. The frame was bare, and the handle gleamed like it had just been polished. The whispers began again, clearer this time, layered over each other like 100 voices speaking at once. "Come see." Her phone rang an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. A man's voice, sharp and urgent. "Whatever you do, don't open that door." She glanced toward the hallway. The handle was turning on its own. Erin's breath hitched. The door handle kept turning, slow and deliberate, as if whoever or whatever was behind it had all the time in the world. She dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, the caller's voice still spilling from the speaker. "Erin, are you there?" "Don't let it." The line went dead. She stared at the door, frozen between the urge to run and the knowledge there was nowhere to go. The apartment seemed different now, longer. The hallway stretched farther than it ever had before, the walls bending slightly inward, like the building itself was leaning closer to watch her. The knocking started again, not on the mysterious door this time, but behind her. She spun around. The kitchen cabinets were trembling, dishes rattling inside. A faint scratching came from the sink drain, like fingernails dragging against metal. The smell hit her, then damp earth and something coppery. She backed toward the front door, heart pounding, when she heard the sound that would haunt her forever. Breathing, not hers, not near her, above her. She looked up. A face peered down from the ceiling. Pale skin stretched too tightly over bone, eyes like black pits, and a mouth far too wide. It whispered one word. Now. The sealed door at the end of the hall slammed open on its own. Darkness poured out, not just the absence of light, but something thick, swirling, alive. It crawled along the floor toward her like smoke with claws. Erin bolted. She didn't think, didn't plan, she just ran straight into the darkness, because the thing on the ceiling had started to descend. The moment she crossed the threshold, the air turned icy. She was no longer in her apartment. The floor beneath her feet felt like old wood, soft and rotting in places. A dim light flickered ahead, revealing rows of doors stretching into the distance, hundreds of them, each different, each whispering. Somewhere far behind her, the thing from the ceiling laughed. Erin pressed herself against the nearest wall, gulping down shaky breaths. The wood here was warm, almost breathing beneath her palms. She glanced back. The doorway she'd come through was gone. No apartment, no ceiling monster, just an endless black corridor swallowing the space behind her. A faint click echoed down the hall, then another. Like locks being undone, one after another, moving closer. She picked a direction and started walking fast. She didn't want to run, yet something told her the sound of footsteps would only draw whatever was unlocking those doors. The whispers grew louder. She realized they weren't random different doors, were calling her name. Some in a voice that sounded like her own. Others in the voices of people she loved, her mother, her childhood friend, even her old teacher from school. The air turned colder the farther she went, and the flickering light above her began to die out. That's when she saw the first door move. It wasn't swinging, it was breathing, just like the wall. The wood expanded and contracted, and the handle slowly turned toward her without anyone touching it. She stopped dead in her tracks. From behind the door came a sound that made her stomach lurch, wet chewing, and a low, muffled sob. The lock behind her clicked again, this time much closer. She had no choice. She pushed the breathing door open and slipped inside. The room was small, lit by a single bare bulb swaying from the ceiling. The walls were lined with shelves, and on each shelf sat jars, hundreds of them, some filled with cloudy liquid, some filled with things she didn't want to recognize. One jar on the middle shelf began to shake violently the moment she stepped closer. Inside, something pressed against the glass, distorting into the faint shape of a face, her face screaming soundlessly. She stumbled back, knocking over another jar. It shattered, spilling black sludge that began crawling toward her shoes like it was alive. The bulb flickered, and she saw a shadow on the far wall. Tall, thin, long arms that almost touched the floor. The lock outside the room clicked again. Erin didn't wait for the shadow to move. She bolted. The sludge tried to snake around her ankles, but she leapt over it, tearing out the door. The corridor outside was no longer straight. It twisted like the inside of a giant spiral shell, and she could see far ahead the point where it seemed to narrow to nothing. Behind her, the thing from the shelves stepped into the hall. Its head tilted. Its arms brushed the walls on either side, nails scraping along the wood with a slow, deliberate screech. It didn't run. It didn't need to. With each blink she took, it seemed closer, like reality was skipping forward just for it. She tried doors as she ran. Locked, until one handle turned. She shoved it open without looking, and almost fell down a staircase that spiraled into blackness. No railing, no sound from below. A whisper brushed her ear. Go down. She hesitated just long enough to glance back. The figure was in the doorway, head tilted almost horizontal, smile stretched impossibly wide. Erin jumped. Her feet hit the first step, then another. Then she was sliding, tumbling, catching herself only by smashing into a landing. Pain shot up her arm. The steps above her were gone. Only a flat wall remained. Now there was just a single hallway ahead, lined with tall, narrow mirrors. Each one reflected her, but not exactly her. One looked 20 years older. One was covered in blood. One had no eyes. The farther she went, the more her reflections moved out of sync. Then one stepped forward right out of the mirror blocking her path. Erin froze. The thing wearing her face tilted its head, just like the shadow upstairs had. Same crooked smile. Same unblinking eyes. It spoke and her voice only slowed down, like a tape being dragged underwater. You shouldn't have come here. Erin stepped back, but the mirrors on either side rippled. Dozens of other versions of her pressed their palms against the glass, grinning too wide, some mouthing words she couldn't hear, others simply staring. The double in front lunged. Erin dropped low, scrambling past it, brushing against one of the mirrors. Cold, so cold her skin burned. She didn't look back. Her steps echoed down the hall until finally the mirrors ended and she stumbled into a wide circular room. The ceiling was too far away to see. Chains hung down into the darkness above, swaying slowly even though there was no wind. In the center stood a chair. Not a normal chair tall-backed, carved from a single piece of black wood, its surface covered in symbols that seemed to squirm if she stared too long. The whisper came again stronger, now sit. Her legs moved before her brain caught up. Every step felt heavier, her mind fogging. She sat. The wood was warm, almost pulsing under her fingers, and the chains above started lowering. Not to bind her, to crown her. Something cold and metallic brushed her head, and the whisper became a roar. Now you belong to the hollow. Her vision snapped to black. When it cleared, she was standing back in the library's entrance hall. Only it wasn't the same. The windows showed nothing but an endless, shifting darkness outside. Behind her, the door to the spiral hall stood open. The shadow figure waited there. It bowed. Erin didn't speak. Her breath came in shallow pulls, her hands cold and stiff. The shadow straightened from its bow and gestured toward the great double doors of the library. They creaked open on their own, revealing the same old street she remembered from when she first arrived. Only it was wrong. The buildings leaned at impossible angles. Their windows stretched tall and thin like watchful eyes. The lampposts bent down as if listening. and the air too still, too thick, carried the faintest sound of whispering in every direction. The shadow stepped aside, inviting her out. She walked forward, and the instant her foot touched the cracked pavement, the library doors slammed shut behind her. The whispers grew louder, shifting, circling her. They weren't just voices. They were names. Her name, spoken over and over by countless mouths she couldn't see. She turned the corner and saw herself. Another Erin, standing perfectly still in the middle of the road, eyes wide, mouth open like she was about to scream, but no sound came out. Behind that Erin, more figures appeared, some wearing her face. Some wearing faces she knew, some with no faces at all. They all moved toward her in perfect silence. Erin backed away, but the road behind her was now gone, replaced by the spiral mirror hallway from before. The figures kept coming, faster now. The shadow's voice slipped into her ear, smooth and final. Run if you like. You'll still end up here. The last thing she saw before the darkness swallowed her was her own reflection, gritting back from every surface. And that was only the first nightmare waiting in the hollow. But the next one, it's darker, and it's real.